Last month, a 67-year-old patient walked into my office. Not for the first time, but this time was different. He wasn't just concerned. He was crying. Not because his PSA was high. Not because his urologist was talking about biopsies. But because the so-called healthy snack his cardiologist recommended 6 months earlier was secretly making everything worse. His prostate, his circulation, and most painfully, his confidence in the bedroom. The culprit? A food sitting in your pantry right now, probably in a container labeled heart healthy. And if you're eating it daily like he was, your prostate, your blood flow, and yes, your performance are all paying a price you didn't sign up for. I'm Dr. May Anderson, and for 25 years I've specialized in helping men over 60 reclaim what they thought was gone forever. Energy, vitality, and the kind of physical confidence that doesn't require a prescription. Today I'm going to walk you through the 3 nuts that are sabotaging your PSA levels and your sexual health at the same time, and the 4 you should be eating instead. But more importantly, I'm going to explain why this matters for more than just a lab number, because your PSA and your bedroom performance are connected through the exact same inflammatory pathways, and once you understand that connection, everything changes. Here's what most doctors won't tell you, either because they don't know or because it's not their specialty. When your PSA goes up, it's almost never happening in isolation. Elevated PSA is a marker of inflammation in your prostate tissue. That same inflammation restricts blood vessels, reduces nitric oxide production, and directly impacts erectile function. So when one number climbs, the other capability often declines. They're not separate problems. They're 2 sides of the same coin, and certain foods, even ones marketed as healthy, are inflaming both systems simultaneously. My patient, the one I mentioned, had been eating 2 large handfuls of cashews every single night for 6 months. He thought he was being responsible. His cardiologist told him to swap chips for nuts. Good advice on the surface. But cashews are packed with saturated fats and high levels of oxalates, naturally occurring compounds that don't just irritate prostate tissue. They also restrict blood flow to the pelvic region. Within 3 weeks of removing cashews and switching to what I'm about to tell you, his morning energy came back. His urinary stream improved. He stopped waking up 3 times a night. And the thing he was most embarrassed to admit? That started working again too. But before I tell you what he switched to, you need to understand why it worked. Because if you don't get this part, if you just swap one food for another without understanding the mechanism, you'll keep making the same mistake in different forms. And I don't want that for you. I've worked with men in their 60s, 70s, and 80s for more than 2 decades. Not just treating their prostates like isolated organs, but looking at their entire quality of life. And I'll be completely honest with you, most of my patients don't come to me initially because of a lab result. They come because they've lost something. Energy that used to be there. Confidence they once had. The feeling that their body still responds the way it should. And almost always when we dig into their daily habits, not their genetics, not just their age, but what they're actually eating for breakfast and snacking on at 9 p.m., we find silent inflammation. The kind that doesn't announce itself with pain, but quietly shuts down circulation, elevates PSA, and drains vitality from the inside out. The good news, and I mean this, is that you can reverse most of this. Not with expensive supplements. Not with another prescription. Just by understanding which foods are fueling inflammation, and which ones are calming it. 3 foods need to go. For need to replace them. That's the entire strategy, and it works. Let me paint you a picture of what chronic inflammation actually does to your body when it stays elevated for months or years. Your prostate tissue begins to swell, not dramatically enough to feel at first, but enough to press against your urethra. Urination becomes less complete. You start waking up once a night, then twice, then 3 times. You feel like you never fully empty. That's the surface level. But here's what's happening deeper. That same inflammation stiffens your blood vessels throughout your entire body. Nitric oxide production drops. Nitric oxide is the molecule responsible for relaxing blood vessels and enabling blood flow to happen naturally and reliably. When it declines, circulation suffers everywhere. Your brain, your heart, your extremities, and critically, your pelvic region. Blood flow that used to happen effortlessly becomes inconsistent. Energy that carried you through the afternoon crashes by 2 p.m. Mental clarity blurs. And in the bedroom, things that used to be predictable become unreliable. My patient, let's call him Walter, told me something I'll never forget. He said he'd started avoiding intimacy with his wife entirely. Not because he didn't want to, not because the desire was gone, but because he was terrified of failing again. He'd rather avoid the moment than face that specific kind of disappointment. That's what unchecked inflammation does. It doesn't just raise a number on a lab report. It steals your confidence, erodes your connection with your partner, and quietly dismantles your identity as a man who still feels capable. Walter came to me with a PSA of 6.8. Not cancer range, but trending upward consistently for 2 years. His urologist was discussing biopsy options. His wife was anxious. And Walter felt defeated. When I asked him about his diet, he was actually proud of the changes he'd made. He told me, "I quit potato chips 6 months ago, doctor. Now I snack on nuts every night. Cashews mostly, some peanuts, those mixed bags from Costco." That's when I knew exactly what was happening. He was trying so hard to be healthy, making what seemed like smart choices, but unknowingly feeding his inflammation every single evening. Here's what I told Walter that day, and what I need you to understand right now. Peanuts aren't even real nuts. They're legumes grown underground like beans, and they're often stored in warm, damp conditions that make them highly susceptible to aflatoxins, toxic molds that stress your liver and trigger systemic inflammation throughout your body. On top of that, peanuts are loaded with omega-6 fatty acids. A little omega-6 is essential, but too much without balancing omega-3 shifts your entire body into an inflammatory state. And inflammation is the single biggest driver of elevated PSA. The average American gets roughly 15 to 20 times more omega-6 than omega-3 in their diet. That ratio should be closer to 4 to 1, ideally even 2 to 1. When it's wildly out of balance, your immune system stays in a constant low-grade alert state. That alert state produces cytokines, inflammatory molecules that circulate through your bloodstream and settle into tissues, including your prostate. Over time, this creates a cycle where inflammation fuels more inflammation. Your prostate swells slightly, produces more PSA as a response, and the cycle continues. Peanuts, especially when eaten daily, are one of the biggest contributors to this imbalance. Cashews aren't much better. They're high in saturated fat, surprisingly low in omega-3s, and packed with oxalates. If you already have a sensitive urinary system or mild prostate swelling, oxalates make everything worse. They irritate tissue. They contribute to discomfort. And most cashews you buy are roasted in cheap oils and covered in salt, creating a triple threat for your blood pressure, your prostate, and your circulation. One serving of salted cashews can contain 180 milligrams of sodium or more. If you're eating 2 handfuls like Walter was, that's over 400 milligrams of sodium from a snack you thought was healthy. That sodium contributes to fluid retention, which can make your pelvic area feel tight and uncomfortable, especially if you're already dealing with prostate enlargement. Then there are macadamia nuts. Now, macadamias aren't inherently harmful the way peanuts can be, but they're calorie bombs. A single small handful contains over 200 calories and 20 grams of fat. If you're already carrying extra weight, especially around your midsection, those excess calories fuel more inflammation, more estrogen conversion from fat tissue, and yes, higher PSA levels. Belly fat isn't just cosmetic. It's metabolically active tissue that produces inflammatory compounds and converts testosterone into estrogen. The more belly fat you carry, the more this conversion happens, and the harder it becomes to maintain healthy hormone balance. Macadamias won't directly cause this, but if you're eating them mindlessly, half a container while watching TV, you're adding hundreds of extra calories that your body will store as fat if you're not burning them off. Walter was eating all 3 of these nuts daily, rotating between them, thinking he was doing everything right. Let me explain why this matters at a level most doctors don't discuss with their patients. Your prostate sits surrounded by a dense network of tiny blood vessels. When systemic inflammation rises, those vessels constrict. Less oxygen reaches your prostate tissue. Less nutrient delivery happens. Oxidative stress builds up. that stress signals your prostate cells to produce more PSA as a protective, defensive response. It's not cancer. It's your body trying to manage an irritated environment. At the exact same time, that inflammation lowers nitric oxide availability. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Urology found that men with elevated PSA levels also had significantly lower nitric oxide markers in their blood work. The two are biologically linked, not coincidentally related. Nitric oxide is what allows your blood vessels to relax and expand when they need to. It's the reason blood flow increases to muscles during exercise, to your brain when you're thinking hard, and to your pelvic region during arousal. Without adequate nitric oxide, none of that happens efficiently. Your body tries, but it struggles. That's why men with chronic inflammation often experience both urinary symptoms and erectile difficulties at the same time. It's not bad luck. It's the same underlying mechanism affecting multiple systems. But here's the breakthrough that changed Walter's life and can change yours. Omega-3 fatty acids, the kind found in specific nuts and fatty fish, actively reduce inflammatory signaling at a cellular level. They tell your immune system to calm down. They improve the flexibility and responsiveness of your blood vessels. They support healthier prostate cell function. A study from UCLA showed that men who ate walnuts daily experienced measurable changes in gene expression, specifically genes related to inflammation control and cellular repair. That's not just nutrition. That's influencing how your DNA behaves. Your genes respond to the environment you create through food, stress, sleep, and activity. When you consistently provide anti-inflammatory nutrients, your genes shift toward repair and balance. When you flood your system with pro-inflammatory foods, your genes shift toward defense and dysfunction. Walter didn't need another medication. He needed better fats in his diet, and he needed them consistently. So here's exactly what Walter switched to, and what I recommend you start tonight if your PSA is trending upward, or if you're noticing any decline in energy, circulation, or performance. First, walnuts. 7 whole walnuts daily, which equals about 1 ounce. Walnuts are packed with omega-3 fatty acids in the form of alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA. Your body converts some of that ALA into EPA and DHA, the active forms of omega-3 that reduce inflammation and support cardiovascular and prostate health. Walnuts also contain zinc, a mineral that's absolutely critical for prostate function and testosterone production. You can add them to oatmeal in the morning, toss them into a salad at lunch, or eat them plain as an afternoon snack. They are hands down the single best nut for men over 60 concerned about PSA and vitality. Second, almonds. 10 to 15 raw almonds daily. Almonds are extraordinarily high in vitamin E, specifically alpha-tocopherol, a powerful antioxidant that protects prostate cells from oxidative damage. Oxidative damage is what happens when free radicals, unstable molecules created by stress, poor diet, and environmental toxins, attack your cells. Over time, this damage accumulates and contributes to aging, inflammation, and disease. Vitamin E neutralizes those free radicals before they can cause harm. Almonds are also rich in magnesium, which is critical for healthy testosterone production and optimal blood flow. Magnesium helps relax smooth muscle tissue, including the muscles in your blood vessel walls. That relaxation allows blood to flow more freely, which benefits everything from your heart to your brain to your pelvic region. Skip the roasted, salted, honey-glazed versions. Those added ingredients cancel out the benefits. Go raw or dry roasted with nothing added. Third, pistachios. 1 ounce per day, which is roughly 45 to 50 individual nuts. Pistachios naturally boost nitric oxide production in your body, improving circulation to your prostate and your entire pelvic region. A 2011 study demonstrated that men who ate pistachios daily for just 3 weeks showed improved blood vessel health and reduced oxidative stress markers. 3 weeks. That's how quickly your body can respond when you give it the right fuel. Pistachios also contain L-arginine, an amino acid that serves as a building block for nitric oxide. More L-arginine in your diet means your body has more raw material to produce the nitric oxide it needs for healthy circulation. They also provide fiber, which supports digestive health and helps regulate blood sugar. Stable blood sugar means less inflammation and more consistent energy throughout the day. Fourth, Brazil nuts. This one requires precision. Just 1 to 2 Brazil nuts per day. No more. Brazil nuts are the richest natural source of selenium on the planet, and selenium is a trace mineral that protects your prostate cells from DNA damage and supports balanced PSA levels. 1 Brazil nut can contain anywhere from 70 to 90 micrograms of selenium. Your daily requirement is around 55 micrograms, and the upper safe limit is 400 micrograms. That's why 1 or 2 is perfect, but 5 or 6 could push you into excess territory. But selenium is one of those nutrients where more is absolutely not better. Too much can cause fatigue, digestive issues, even brittle nails. 1 or 2 Brazil nuts give you exactly what you need without overdoing it. Selenium also supports thyroid function, immune response, and overall cellular health. It's a small nut with an outsized impact. Walter's new daily routine looked like this. In the morning, he added 7 walnuts and 10 almonds to a bowl of plain Greek yogurt with fresh berries. Mid-afternoon, when he used to reach for those cashews, he ate 1 ounce of pistachios instead. After dinner, he had 1 or 2 Brazil nuts as a small, satisfying closer to his evening. That's it. No powders, no pills, no complex meal plans. Just real food, properly chosen, eaten consistently. Within 6 weeks, his PSA dropped from 6.8 to 4.9. His nighttime bathroom trips went from 3 per night to maybe 1. His energy stabilized throughout the day. His mental clarity improved. And in his words, not mine, things started working again the way they used to. He didn't need radical intervention. He just needed to stop feeding inflammation and start feeding repair. If you want a complete breakdown of how to structure your entire eating approach around prostate and sexual health, not just nuts but meals, timing, supplements, and lifestyle habits, I've compiled everything into a resource called the Complete Sexual Health Blueprint for Men Over 50. It expands on everything we're covering here and includes meal templates, shopping lists, and daily protocols you can follow step by step. The link is in the description below if you want to grab your copy before it's unavailable again. Walter isn't an isolated success story. I've had men in their early 70s tell me they feel sharper and stronger than they did at 60. One patient said, "I didn't even realize how foggy I'd gotten until the fog lifted." Another told me, "My wife noticed the change before I did. She said I seemed present again, like I was actually there with her." These aren't dramatic transformations that happen overnight. They're gradual, steady improvements that compound over weeks and months. This isn't about reversing time or pretending age doesn't matter. It's about reclaiming function. And function equals confidence. Confidence strengthens connection. And connection is what makes life deeply worth living at any age. You don't have to accept decline as inevitable. You just have to stop accidentally fueling it with foods you thought were helping. One more thing I want to address before we wrap up. A lot of men ask me if they can just take supplements instead of eating whole nuts. Fish oil for omega-3s, vitamin E capsules, selenium pills. Technically, yes, you could. But here's why I don't recommend that as your primary strategy. Whole foods contain dozens of compounds that work together synergistically. When you eat walnuts, you're not just getting omega-3s. You're getting fiber, polyphenol, plant sterols, and other phytonutrients that enhance absorption and effectiveness. When you isolate one compound into a pill, you lose that synergy. Your body recognizes and processes whole foods differently than it does isolated nutrients. That doesn't mean supplements are useless. They have their place, especially if you have specific deficiencies, but they should supplement a good diet, not replace it. Food first, always. If you don't want to forget which nuts to avoid and which ones to prioritize, subscribe to this channel right now. Because next week I'm releasing a video on the 5 worst foods for testosterone levels in men over 60, and I guarantee at least 2 of them are sitting in your refrigerator today. If you're not subscribed, YouTube's algorithm won't show that video to you. Don't let that happen. Hit that subscribe button. And if you know another man over 60 dealing with rising PSA, low energy, or performance concerns, share this video with him. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for each other is share what's actually working without shame, without stigma, just real help between men who understand what it's like. Next video, we're diving into morning routines that naturally lower PSA, including one 60-second habit that improved circulation in over 80% of my patients. You won't want to miss it. I'm Dr. May Anderson. Stay vital.